Hi friend, welcome back to day 29 of World Watercolor Month. Today I'm going to show you how to use a fan brush to paint some really fun textures like trees, brushes, and grass. So let's just jump right into it.
So today we are going to be painting with fan brushes to make some really cool textures and trees. I want to quickly go over the brushes with you. So these are both fan brushes. This one is by Grabby and this one is by Princeton. Obviously this one is a larger fan brush. They both have synthetic bristles, which is really important with this technique. You see how these are kind of separating, and that really helps create these sort of textures that we're going for. I'm also going to be using a liner brush to create the trunk of my tree and such like that. So I'm going to first walk you through how you can use the brush, and then we will go into painting a tree. You want to make sure that your brush is fully loaded with paint, and then you can always test it out over here to make sure. But we are going to first start by just doing some simple strokes just to see how this brush works. So you can start by going up softly and down and turning your wrist to kind of make different motions. You could use the side. You can flick up. See how you're making those really nice texture there? And I did put a little bit of different color in there, so I'm getting different colors. And then if we did first wet this paper, you're going to get a little bit of a different effect. Just going to be a little bit softer. See that compared to that? And then you can let this dry and go back in and create some really beautiful blended backgrounds like that. Now you could even use this straight to create texture like that. And this is also really fun for like beachy grass. So if you wanted to do some sort of beach grass, I really like to use this in that way. That's how pretty that is. And it's sort of, you just kind of get used to moving the brush. It can be a little bit tricky at first, but once you start, it kind of gets easier. So don't feel like, you know, you can't do it. It does take practice. And I am pressing down and adding pressure, and we're getting a little bit more, covering more paper, and it's obviously a little bit less brushy and more flat, but you can still see that beautiful brush work, and it's like dry brushing at this point. And that's a really nice thing about the fan brushes. You can get both textures at the same time. So depending on if you want to use it wet, and then you're still going to get this texture here. So wet and dry. So you can do, this could give you a very watery feel. You can do mountain types. So it's best to just pick up the brush and play with it before, and just see what you can get with it. This one's really great for fur as well. So this is just a little bit smaller. Like I said, you get a little bit more control. So if we're gonna do some fur, depending on what animal you're doing, you can get some really nice fur texture in here. And again, this is like kind of dry. You can do it and get, this isn't really exactly a fur color, but you can press down and get that more wet texture. And then you can go back in and add some texture on top of that with a little bit more of a drier brush. You can see that in there. And you just kind of work on how to move your arm with it. So when we do the tree, you're going to be going different directions, and it is easy, but again, it just takes some like getting used to the brush. You see how I'm using it on the tip here? And you can dot it like this to create texture. you can wiggle it sort of different directions, and then you can put it flat down. And then here I'm sort of like flicking it up. So just ways to use your brush and get used to it before jumping right in. Now, if you want to get your brush really super wet, you can make some bushes with it. So you're just gonna press down and sort of move that brush around, wiggle it around. Or these could be even treetops, like different types of trees. So let's just say this is a nice little bush. And maybe there's one like right in front. See a different texture that you can get just by using this one brush. And then once this is a little drier, you're able to go back in and add some more detail in there and build up those fluffy layers. Even if you want to add in some grass. And we're literally just stamping it and sort of moving our wrist like this. And you're able to get in a lot of different detail. All right, so now that we've got this down, why don't we go in and start painting an evergreen tree?
So we're just starting by mixing up some burnt umber with a little bit of sepia, and I am just creating a line for the trunk of my tree. And you can make this as thick or as thin as you'd like. And I'm loading up my smaller fan brush just because I'm painting smaller. We're using a mix of Hooker's green and Prussian blue and whatever's left on my palette here. We're going to start at the top, and we're going to start making motions that are going upwards. So you see I'm using the side of the brush here, like the corner side, and I'm making the flicks going upwards. So it depends on what side you're on, but on the left here, I work my way from out to in, and then on the right, I sort of turn my brush and I'm going out to in here. But you can also go from in to out, if that makes sense. So let me just show you. So we're going in from the branch and then going out and up. And that is, it sounds complicated, but it's not. I mean, it does take time to get used to. Don't get me wrong. So you got to keep practicing, but we're going from the top and back into the trunk. And on the top of the tree, the branches are going to go up, and then as we get further down, they're going to start to droop downwards. So right now we're just sort of going in that upward angle, and now we're going to start slowly to make them tilt a little bit down, if that makes more sense. And you can use that technique where you press that brush down and create more coverage. See how we don't have as much texture in there? But if you do that, it's fine, because we're going to go back over it. Like if it looks like it's too solid, it's fine. We're going to go back over it once it dries, and we're going to put more of the brush-like texture on top. So this is just building up layers, pretty much, making it look fluffy. So I'm just doing that same motion, and I'm using the side of the brush mostly. And you see how we went from flicking up to sort of flicking down. And we're just using short, quick, almost flicking strokes here. And we're incorporating some more darker color in there so that it blends nice, so that this layer isn't flat. Because you don't want just one layer of the same color. I'm not sure you can do that and build upon it, but it's just always nice to get some. And at this point, we're sort of doing a larger swoop here in the center because it's chunkier in the middle. So we're just dragging that paint from the trunk and swooping it upwards. And then as we go down to the bottom, we're going to start to turn the brush and create the branches so that they appear that they're going downwards. But you can still flip it at the corners where it's a little bit tilted up. It's your tree, so you can do whatever you want. But this technique is just, it seems difficult, and I'm just going to keep saying that. But it's really not, and you just got to keep practicing. If you want to use the larger brush, go for it. And you'll see right away, this one's just going to give me some thicker branches, which is great. So I'm able to add a lot more texture at the bottom here. And you can already see the difference. These strokes are much broader. They're not as fluffy, but I like them both, and I like to combine them both. But it's totally up to you. Now you see we have the branch showing. We don't want that, because now it looks like we have a tree that just has two sizes, like it's sliced down the middle. We want to take this brush and cover the front with some fluffy branches that appear that they're in front. So that's when we're going to do that sort of wiggle side to side stamping motion that I showed you in the warm up there. So you see I'm just like sort of wiggling my wrist side to side. I'm going, there's no particular way, I'm kind of just swaying or zigzagging. See how I'm just going back and forth like a little bit of a sway, and I'm just gently tapping, and I'm just making sure to keep adding different values of green. So in the front here, you see how I'm building up the darkness, and it's creating so much depth, and I'm not really doing much. I'm just tapping, and you can do some flicking. Now, if you find the top of your tree is too rounded, you can extend it. You can use your liner brush again, or you can use the top of that brush there and draw a line down, and then we're just going to use the very corner and flick upwards again. And even just little tapping motions to create the appearance of branches up there. And now at this point, we're just going to keep on building up our tree. So what I mean by that is we're going to add deeper value in there to keep building up the shadows. So I'm just going to go back in and add shadow in the back. And you don't want the back to be darker than the front. So we want to make sure that we keep the value of the tree lighter green so that we can add these values here that I'm using now. And this is just a really dark mixture of that Hooker's green with the Prussian blue. And I'm not using a very watery mixture. It's a little bit more opaque, so I'm able to sort of stamp it and get those really dramatic, that contrast there, as you can see. And you want to just keep doing this until you're happy with the way that your tree looks. And I just want to quickly show you another way that you can do this. So if you're more comfortable, you can paint your tree in with a light wash in the background, and then you can go over it with the brush all the brushwork that we just did, because maybe it's a little bit easier to see it in front of you like this before you paint the shape of the tree out. So that's just another way, and you're also going to get more of a sort of a blended look in the background, and you can also maybe leave the tree a little bit sparse and not do as much brushwork. It really depends on the style that you're looking for. There's really no right or wrong when we're doing art. So I'm also going to put that same wash on the bottom here, and then we're going to build up some grass. Now this could be a snowy scene if you want, or it could be the summer, whatever you like. I just want to show you all the different things that we learned and that you can apply to your paintings in this tutorial. So I'm just blending it out. I'm not going too crazy or too far down or making it a straight line. And then we will add in our brushwork here. So while it's still damp, I'm going to start to drop in those really soft blends. So I'm mixing up whatever's on my palette there, honestly, to create a grass color. I'm just flicking up, and it's creating a very soft, blended out, grassy look. See how pretty that is? And then I'm going from top to bottom, from bottom to top, and I'm just changing it up, and I'm moving my wrists different ways so it just looks a little bit different. And this is basically, we're doing the same thing. We're kind of building up like we did with our tree. And I'm not going to go too crazy down here. We just want to kind of give the appearance of grass or some sort of foreground. You can also go in with a damp round brush and sort of smooth out any textures if you want and blend them out. But what I'm doing, I'm just going to fill that in, and then I'm going to go back into this tree here now that that wash is dry, and we're just going to do the same exact thing. And maybe you could leave a little bit of space, like I was saying. You can do a little bit of a softer look, just a different way to do it. Same results, can be the same result, just a different way to do it. And then now that that's in the background there, I wanted to pull out some shadow in the front And we're just building up those layers the same way. And I'm just going to keep building up that foreground. So I'm just literally using the brush to sort of stamp, and it's creating this rounded shape. And you can see we're getting some really great texture there. I'm just going to keep on doing that until I'm happy with the way that looks. Going back into my tree, adding in some different colors, blending out. And then I'm going to add in some bushes here just because. And then I'm just pulling out my final details. I'm adding in shadows, pulling out the trunks. Maybe they got a little bit lost and you might want to add them back in. I'm not going to go crazy here, but if you want, you can make this a snowy scene, and you can add some bleed proof or some white gouache, and you can sort of create some little touches of snow on your branches. This to me isn't really a snowy scene, but I definitely want to show you that you can totally do that. You just bring out little bits of white on the branches, and you've got yourself a snowy scene. And we'll stop here, but just please remember this technique takes a little bit of practice, so please, please, please don't give up if you don't get it right away. You've got this. Thanks so much for painting with me today. We are almost at the finish line of our 31 days of watercolor, so be sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss tomorrow's lesson. I'm going to show you how to paint with tea and coffee. It's super fun. I'll see you back here tomorrow.